We're here today with Sylvia Hutton. How are you this morning?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. It's so good to see you again. It's been a while since we've seen you on the charts and out and about, even though I know you've been busy writing and you're still doing a lot of songwriting things and different ventures that you're doing. So talk about kind of what's been keeping you busy the last 14 years since you've put out an album.
Yes.
I know you have a new one in the works that's coming out, and very excited. I got my advanced copy, so it's awesome. There's some great songs on it, but just kind of fill everybody in a little bit and we'll talk about the project.
Well, the last 14 years or so, 16 years actually, I've been working as a life and career coach, and that's mainly what I've been focused on. I occasionally have done some shows. Every year I would do a handful of shows, but often benefit concerts, that kind of thing, which I love to do. And I've continued to sing, even though I've not really been in the spotlight that much. I go to see my voice teacher every Wednesday at 11:30 and keep in touch with my voice. So, my passion in life is singing, and I can add to that now another passion in my life is coaching and working with people that are moving through some kind of transition or that work in the music industry in some way, either an artist or songwriter or industry professional. And coaching is something that was kind of a natural progression for me, which doesn't, it sounds probably like a weird segue, but I moved from recording with RCA on a major label to recording independently, and my first independent record was really before the internet really took off.
Yep.
It was very challenging to promote a record then, and so I began searching around and realized that another passion of mine was to be of service to others in some way.
Mm-hmm. Well, that doesn't surprise me because that's just your personality. So talk about, since you brought it up, talk about the changes that we've seen since Nobody was like such a huge hit for you. You've seen everything progress, and now that the internet and social media is such a big factor in getting music out, what are you doing to reach new fans, to keep the old ones engaged? Are you utilizing a lot of the social media? What do you like about it? What do you not like about it?
Yes, a lot has changed since the last time I put out even an independent record, and of course things have changed since the 1980s when I was recording for RCA. I love social media. I think it's been an equalizing factor for artists because artists can really create the foundation, their fan base. They can connect with their fans directly through Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and it's just it's fabulous. I think you can get lost on there if you want to see a kind of a downside to it, but I think if you're somebody like me who likes to try to pay attention to all things in balance, but I think it's going to be a really exciting thing releasing this new record that's called It's All in the Family. It's coming out October 7th. It'll be available for pre-order on September 9th, and I just think it's great. People don't even have to get up out of their chair. They can just and then they get the record at their front door in a minute, or they can download it onto their computer, or so it's a whole new day. And I'm since I haven't put out a record in about 14 years, a lot has changed. So I feel like I'm on a steep learning curve.
Absolutely,
but I'm
yes.
actually enjoying it, and I'm getting in touch with fans I haven't seen or heard from in decades, and it's just so exciting.
Yeah.
I haven't been this excited about putting out a record since the very first record I put out.
Well, that's good to hear.
1980.
That's good to hear, because a lot of people do. They go through burnout, or they just feel like they aren't appreciated, or they just get tired of the grind, because there is a business side to this, even though there's a fun side. So I'm glad to hear you're so excited. Talk about the new CD that you've got coming out, the new project. I know that the very first song on there means a lot to you, as well as the title track, All in the Family. So elaborate a little bit on that.
Well, the record is called It's All in the Family, and it really, the whole record, it's really a tapestry of a theme of family and relationships within family. And it's also a metaphor for a larger family, musical family, humanity, the family of humanity. The very first song that starts off the record is really important to me in that it's a true story. When I was 3 years old and I was living in Tall Timbers Trailer Park in Kokomo, Indiana, where I was born and raised mainly, we lived on the corner lot of in the trailer park, and right beside where we parked the car was the train track. And so when the train came by, I mean, it
You
was like
felt
thunder.
it, absolutely.
I mean, the ground shook, the everything in the cupboards rattled, and I was telling my friend Tom Schuyler this story as we were listening to a melody that my friend John Mock had written, and we were trying to figure out what is this melody about, because we were going to write lyrics to it. And we realized after I told him the story about the train, that this song this melody we were listening to had a train feel, and that's probably why I was prompted to tell him that story. And so we ended up writing this true story, and it just warms my heart, because the kind of the crux of that story is facing your fears, facing the things that you're afraid of. And the beautiful story in that is that something wonderful happened rather than something scary. And so people will have to listen to every time a train goes by to hear the story, but it's a true one. And then It's All in the Family, well, is the name of the album, and there's a song on the album that I feel like is the core of this album, called All in the Family. Also, that John Mock wrote the melody to, and Tom Schuyler and I sat around trying to think, what does this feel like? It felt like it's about family, it's about lineage, it's about understanding where we come from. Who are these people? What's it all about? And I feel so proud of that song. I just think it really captures something not only personal that we all, but something that we all go through. So I feel like that song is the jewel in the middle of all these other.
It brings it all together.
Gems.
Brings it all together.
Thanks.
Talk about your songwriting style a little bit, because everybody has their own, and I know you wrote all but 3 songs on this project. Do you prefer to co-write? Do you prefer to write independently? Are you kind of the one that always brings the idea to the table, or are you one that once someone else has the idea, you like to run with it? Talk about a little bit of what your style is and how you prefer to write.
It's very interesting. My style as a writer is very malleable. When I first started writing, and I think that there's a core piece to this, I really have felt like I'm more strong with melody than I am lyric. But in this case, I feel like lyrically I really kind of came into my own on this record, and that John Mock wrote 6 of the melodies on the record, which he is a composer, and he normally doesn't even write song melodies.
Yeah.
That was a new thing, and I got to experience listening to a melody and letting the melody tell you where the song needed to go lyrically, which is interesting, because in the past when I've written songs, often the melody comes first and then the lyrics come. So that's how it usually works for me. But I didn't write several of these melodies, so it's been an interesting process to let other parts of my abilities as a writer come forth.
How long did you work on the project? How long from the first song till you decided which ones were going to go on it?
It was about 9 or 10 months, this whole process of making the record. And when I began the process, the first thought that came, because I had just gone through a divorce in the past year and a half, and my life was kind of at ground zero, and I was trying to decide anew, okay, what's this next chapter of my life going to be like? So I didn't know. Do I want to sing? Do I want to keep coaching? Which I thought, well, probably do. But, I just
kind of at that crossroads where you just needed to,
Yeah, and so I decided, I didn't even decide. It's this whole process of making this record has been so organic. Very little thinking has been involved in this record. It's just came to be. And the first thing I knew was that I wanted my grandpa's fiddle and banjo to have a voice on this record, which it does on a melody that John Mock wrote on my grandpa's banjo, by the way.
Which is very cool that you brought that in. Yeah.
But that was where it started. I just knew, and it set the tone for the whole rest of the record, because there's fiddle, banjo, mandolin, concertina. This record is very organic, but I think it's very fun and accessible too. It's not kind of I guess it's probably, if I was going to put it in a genre, it comes closer to Americana than it does to anything. But it's certainly, I could have imagined it back in the 80s especially, that this record could have been played on the radio. I don't know about today. I hope so, that maybe it'll get some radio airplay. But it just feels alive, and the process felt very alive and in the moment the whole time we were making this record. And I didn't know, it was not, there was not anything, and we need this kind of song or that, none of that. It was just, oh, here's a melody, what are we going to write? Okay, this is what it's about, okay, let's write. And then before you know it, you look up 9 or 10 months later and it's like, hey, we have an album's worth of songs.
We have a whole bunch of them here.
And here we go.
Talk a little bit about, because you kind of elaborated on it, but the pressures that you felt when you were on a label versus now when you are doing this project. And like you said, there was no demands and pressures. You have to have this kind, you have to have that kind. How does that feel in the growth process to be able to have that, and you kind of got that freedom to do what you want now?
Yeah.
So how does that feel, and how does it fit into the whole album?
Well, back in the 80s when I was recording, really, if you wanted to record as an artist, you had to have a major record deal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we didn't have the technology available to everyone as we have now. So often there was a lot of pressure when you were in the studio, you were on a time, you were on the clock, you were spending hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars per hour, hiring the musicians, everything. So there was a certain kind of financial pressure that we've got to get this done. And I'm so glad I had that experience, because that's the way it was done then. And I'm glad that I felt that, because in making of this record and the subsequent records since the RCA days, there's not been that pressure. Like, it's not like creating in a pressure cooker. And I could not have appreciated this way of recording if I had not experienced the other way of recording.
Absolutely, yes.
And so I feel like it has afforded me the ability to really show up. More of me shows up in the recording, because I'm more relaxed. I'm not trying to be something I think somebody else wants me to be, which I was recording for RCA when I was in my 20s. I was very inexperienced in life. I have much more experience in life now in my 50s. And so I feel like there's just more of me present in the recording. And at the same time, in all my learnings and growth as a singer, what I really value is getting out of the way of the song, so that the song can really, the story is the focus, and the whole, it's the whole 9 yards. It's for the sake of what have I been learning to become a better and better singer, is so that it's not about the sound of my voice. It's not about vocal gymnastics. It's not about, oh, what are people going to think about my singing. It's really about the songs. And so I'm really, really loving that.
Kind of going into my last question for you, obviously you've been out doing some songwriter rounds and singing out on the road and doing some shows. What have been some of the fans' reaction to the new music as you've leaked a little here and there and tested it out on them?
Yes, I've been doing quite a bit of touring this year, and I've been just bowled over by the response that I'm getting. When I do a show, I'm mixing the old music from the 80s in with the new, weaving it all together. And I, of course, did not know how people would receive that. But people at the autograph table after the shows, they're going, when can I get this new record? I mean, they're just chomping at the bit to get the new record. So I've been just pleasantly surprised. But, I think when you do something genuine and from your heart and you're loving it, the chances of other people loving it are pretty high.
It shows, it comes through.
I think it comes through. And I think this music really connects with people's own life experiences, and that's what you hope for. It's not like, hey, this is about my life. It's like, hey, haven't you experienced this too? Isn't this something, isn't your life like this? Haven't you seen things this way before? It's like discovering something together, and I love that. I feel like this record is very inviting and very accessible to people.
Well, I know everybody's going to love it as much as I have, and we're always excited when we get a chance to talk to you, and we can't wait for everybody else to hear it so they can get a good listen and they can enjoy it as much as we have.
Oh, thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for coming in and visiting with us today.
This has been my pleasure. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.